I'm Chris. He's Joe, and joining us right now from our TV partners at ABC 15 is Ashley Holden. Ashley, many reporters will talk about the time that they were there for different executions, and you were there today, which is a memory that you will take with you for the rest of your life, I'm sure.
Yeah, I was just describing to someone, obviously, as a human being today has a heaviness, even though you're serving as a media witness,
Yeah, a little bizarre. All right, so let's go through then some of the responsibilities that you as a media witness had. So did Aaron Gunches, who was executed this morning a little after 10 o'clock for the murder of Ted Price, did he have any last words? Were there any remarkable moments that are of note?
No final words from Gunches. So they take you through this whole process, and obviously this is my first time, but I've covered executions for probably the last 6 years in 2 different states, and we did have some people that were in our media witness group who have covered several others here in Arizona, but the process for me was very new. So you're given a pad of paper and a pen. You're taken to these various checkpoints, and you go in this room to serve as a witness to document what is happening. And the room is small. I think I probably in my head imagined it a little bit smaller, with kind of bleacher-style seating. There's benches that are cushioned. And, of course, in front of the room, there's a curtain. They had multiple TV screens that showed an aerial view of the bed, the gurney that Gunches was brought in and put on and restrained. And then from there, after he's restrained, curtain opens and the process really begins. So you have an IV medical team. And I think in my head, again, kind of when I envisioned this, I think people here, they were wearing hoods or black hoods and, to hide their faces. And the medical team was wearing, almost entirely head to toe, white coverings, as if like what you would see in a hospital is how I would describe it. And it was almost as if they were wearing like a white jacket and then something to cover their face. And there were 3 people that came in, one other with a clipboard that were a part of that team, placing the IVs in his arm. And then eventually when that process is done, which really only took a few minutes, they read the warrant of execution and they ask Gunches, do you have final words? And he simply shook his head, no. I don't even know if I audibly heard him say anything during the entire process. He looked straight ahead, straight at the ceiling. And I don't remember a moment where he looked over at us. There is kind of like this mirror behind him, which I'm assuming people can see through. And the medical team at times goes, back away from my vantage point. And then we can see actually on one of the screens, the drugs that they have laid out in syringes. And when they're pushing them, and that process started, and you could really see what I remember most is he was doing some heavy breathing, almost like pushing out air, and had several of those let out a yawn, a snore, and then his arms kind of trembled a couple of times. And from there, it looked like he lost consciousness. And we really saw no other movement. So from start to finish, from him getting, placed on the gurney to the time of death being called, it was around 30 minutes. But not all of that time. Obviously, they have to insert the IVs. They have to push the drugs. And like I said, obviously, you're sitting in this room with other journalists, with a legal representative for Gunches. Mm-hmm. And he had another person there who I believe was a reporter. And then you had the Maricopa County attorney who was there as well, County Attorney Rachel Mitchell, and State Attorney General Chris Mays, who were also there witnessing this, along with a representative from Ted Price's family. And of course, Gunches was sentenced to, the death penalty for shooting Ted Price. in 2002, shooting and killing him. But there's a heaviness, just as a human, of being there, and as a journalist, a very important position as a media witness.
Talking with ABC 15 reporter and our television partner, Ashley Holden, joining us right now, witnessed the execution of Aaron Gunches earlier this morning. He was declared dead at 10:33 this morning. Ashley, walk us through that process. Back up just a little bit. We saw reports that from the time the drugs were administered to the time he was declared dead was about 19 minutes. You described the whole process with some heaviness. One of Gunches's, I guess his legal witness, says despite his death looking peaceful, it was not. What was that 19 minutes like to you? You said that you could see him doing some heavy breathing. Did you see anything that gave any indication that he was in any discomfort, any pain, or do you think he was actually passed away before he was declared dead and it just takes that long for one of those people who are in the room with him specifically to say, okay, we don't have any breathing anymore?
Well, and those are really, hard questions to answer.
Yeah.
We saw those pushes of breath. We, heard a yawn. We heard a snore, and I saw kind of his arms tremble a few times. And Dale Bache, who was his legal representative, that was there. I read his statement, and that is and has been the concern as I've covered executions now in two states, in Oklahoma and here, is that there is this big concern. And I was actually sat through an entire federal court case going through autopsies, and there is this concern that possibly the person who's being put to death experiences something that is similar to drowning. And obviously what we saw those heavy breaths. And so those are just very, very hard questions to answer. I will say, obviously this is my first time witnessing an execution.
Sure.
And Dale has witnessed, very different executions in his time, I know. But the people that were with us, that were with the media group, some of them who have witnessed multiple said that this was the smoothest that they've seen. So, obviously we have Dale's statement and what we saw. And again, just tough question.
And I'll inject my personal opinion here too. You mentioned that he had seen other executions before. I got the opinion that regardless of how things went down today, he was likely going to say something along those lines regardless, because he admitted that it did look peaceful. And you were in the room, and if you had to just choose a few words, how would you say it looked to you?
I think that, I was going in, obviously, like I said, not ever seen anything like this. So as the drugs were pushed, I wanted to see what happened. And it was in those breathing moments, I was kind of questioning, okay, what's going to happen next? And after the arms trembled, it was like there was no more movement.
Okay.
And something that I kind of noted when we did the press conference was there was a period of waiting where I was kind of waiting to see, people around me were after said that period of time is normal. You have someone come in and check their pulse, and then we could hear kind of a beeping. But the things that stood out to me was, those heavy breaths that were taking place. And I would say that period of time, I would say was maybe 30 seconds. So, again, I kept thinking, okay, what is going to happen here next? And then stillness.
Ashley Holden from our TV partner, ABC 15, witnessed the death of Aaron Gunches early this morning, declared dead at 10:33. Ashley, thank you so much for being there. Know that has to be, like you said, heaviness. Not an easy assignment. We appreciate that you were there, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching The Chris and Joe Show. Click to see more from Chris and Joe, and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.